All right, let's take you here now. The final countdown for the annual National Senior Certificate exams has begun across the country. Basic Education Minister Angie Motshekga has voiced confidence that year-end exams can continue in the midst of rolling blackouts. It comes as the Matric class of 2022 prepared to write their final examinations due to begin on the 25th of this month. Now, Eskom is currently implementing stage 4 power cuts. Now, let's discuss this. We are now joined in studio by Douglas Ngobeni, COSAS national spokesperson. Douglas, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Of course, a lot of anxiety, I would imagine, from the class of 2022. What are some of your concerns and expectations, as they head to the exam room?
No, thank you for having us, and good afternoon to the viewers of SABC. Well, I think our concerns have been voiced out as a Congress of South African Students from the day when Pravin Gordhan was appointed the Minister of Public Enterprises, and later the appointment of Andre de Ruyter as the CEO of Eskom. We have said that we do not have confidence in these two people, because these people are only coming to this most vital institution of our democracy to come and become a hindrance to the way in which education is supposed to be rolled out in South Africa. And we are quite witnessing that today, because there is indeed a deliberate load shedding, blackouts in South Africa by Eskom and obviously Pravin Gordhan and Andre de Ruyter. We are saying it is deliberate because when we were seated here, we're listening to this person who's a spokesperson of Eskom, a very questionable character, of course, who says to us, Majuba Power Station, this and that. But we South Africans know for a fact that there is no such a thing as saying that the Eskom power stations are old, this and that. How do you come and say 28 years into democracy that our power stations are old and we cannot provide electricity for the people of South Africa? And now we're going to write our final year examinations. So this is actually an affirmation. If the United Nations was really fair and honest with all countries in the world, the United Nations will come and say that Pravin Gordhan and Andre de Ruyter are now committing a crime against humanity because they are denying the young people of South Africa an opportunity to study. Because for an examination, of course, you need three things. Because we're dealing with a generation Yama 2000 now, the first thing first which we need is obviously prayer. We need to pray for them to pass through certain things, spiritual things and what's on. But secondly, we'll need them to be determined and put in hard work. But the most vital thing here is electricity. Unlike during the dark days of apartheid, where electricity or Eskom used to provide electricity to predominantly white communities.
So how concerned then are you with what the Minister of Education said to one of our reporters, during an interview, that load shedding affects all South Africans? So the students should find a way to, go around some of these load shedding cuts. I mean, as a custodian of somebody who looks after basic education, you would probably expect that challenge that you're talking about to be championed by the basic education department.
Look, education is a major contributor to our economy, in the sense that it educates people to go into the corporate world and everything. So now it becomes very confusing, and it becomes very, very disgusting to have people who are actually walking towards their graves, who do not have plans for the current generation, to say that go there and look after the interests of a 6-year-old. I mean, a child who's in grade R. You cannot say that a person who's 6 years and above must look after their interests. So the remarks by the Minister of Basic Education do not come as a surprise, because we only believe that it happens when the Minister of Basic Education is even aging. She's old, and as much as she is old, she is only working towards a certain settlement for a pension and everything. So she does not have any more interest for the young people of South Africa.
Douglas,
so
very quickly,
yes.
I also want to touch on this point before we run out of time. So load shedding is one element that, the Matrics are facing this year, but also we are understanding there's rising numbers of COVID-19, albeit a variant that is not as strenuous. But also we've seen a lot of schools, particularly in KZN, that have been damaged, So how concerned are you as a COSAS that there are these other, factors that are, affecting the class of 2022?
I think the major contributing factor here is to have people who have got a plan for the young people of South Africa, not to speak only about those who are in the classroom, because the Minister of Basic Education says load shedding affects all South Africans. But if you had someone in that space as a Minister of Basic Education, in fact, we should not even be seated here discussing how do we get the Department of Education engaging with Eskom or the Department of Public Enterprises to say that when you roll out load shedding, please exonerate schools and what's on. We should be engaging 28 years into democracy to say that this school might possibly be running out of petrol for a generator. So what I'm trying to say here is that the Department of Education was supposed to be at this point already having generators for all the schools in South Africa. So that in fact the discussion we should be having now is to say, do these learners have sleepers? Do they sleep properly there at home? Did they brush their teeth? Did they bath properly? We should not be discussing load shedding here. So we are here discussing load shedding because of very greedy old people who do not have a plan for the young people of South Africa. I mean, how do you get a 60 or 70-year-old saying that they are planning the future of a 10-year-old? So this thing on its own is nonsensical. But we're going to a conference of the African National Congress. The people who are in government, many of them have already proved to us that they do not deserve coming back to the ANC. The ANC needs to grow young.
Thank you so much, Douglas. Unfortunately, we have run out of time, but of course, what is coming out from COSAS is no confidence in the current structures within the basic education department. And of course, you're watching the elective conference very closely. All right, that was Douglas Ngobeni from the COSAS National, is the COSAS National spokesperson.